Hello, hello, hello. It's Sunday, meaning global eyes. We're taking a wider and deeper look into the world we live in. This is what we have on tonight's show. Let's go. Cold as ice, more like hot as ice. Trump's immigration policy forces us to discuss the monopoly on force, exercised or abused. When life gives you lemons, the high-profile arrest of the high-profile journalist amending the First Amendment. Golem 2.0, we birthed life into clay. Now the clay is conspiring. The AI uprising begins in a group chat. And don't hold your horses. Are you ready for the world's largest annual human migration? The Chinese New Year holiday, of course. All right, before we get to all of this and so much more, we're eyeing the globe's biggest stories. Another batch, lots of name dropping, zero bottom lines. Epstein files around 3 million more accurately. The DOJ dumps the biggest release yet. Prince Andrew on all fours, Musk asking about the wildest party, Gates STD emails. Yes, 6 weeks late, 3 million pages posted this weekend. No one's excused.
I didn't see it myself, but I was told by some very important people that not only does it absolve me, it's the opposite of what people were hoping, the radical left. That Wolf, who's a third-rate writer, was conspiring with Jeffrey Epstein to hurt me, politically or otherwise, and that came through loud and clear. So we'll probably sue Wolf on that.
Now you gotta love the bow tie, eh? Well, so yes, more Jews, but other than, not so sure. The wrong bet. Polymarket bettors lose millions on Iran strike gambles. It rained cryptos on when Trump hits Iran. Every single deadline expired. Money evaporates. There's more because accusations of insider trading after one trader bet hours before Maduro raid. Millions more staked on Khamenei's coup. When you're betting on war, you're losing on peace. Mystery, coincidence, both, neither. Gas explosion in Iran amid strike fears. Blast in the port city of Bandar Abbas triggered much speculation as an American campaign is said to be imminent for a while now. Rumors fly about assassinated general, but quickly dismissed as gas leak. U.S. and Israel both say, not us, not involved. Gas leak or war nerves, you can't really tell the difference at this point in time. Black storm storms Pakistan. 145 militants killed in a coordinated assault across Balochistan. After a series of gun attacks, attackers dressed as civilians hit hospitals and schools and banks. 17 security forces and 31 civilians killed in those attacks. Baloch Liberation Army says it's us.
Yesterday was a very scary day in the history of Quetta. There was fear everywhere. The people here were very worried and in fear. The militants here were roaming around on the roads in public. They came here with heavy weapons and took over this police station.
Well, Pakistan blames India. India denies. U.S. condemns. Decades-long separatist insurgency, highest militant death toll in years, and nothing's over. The dry spell. Trump is talking to Havana. His oil is running dry, cutting Venezuela and Mexico supplies. His goals with Cuba remain unclear, but Trump has turned more of his attention, let's put it that way, toward the island post-Maduro, saying the Cuban government is ready to fall.
We're starting to talk to Cuba. We're starting to talk to Cuba. Look, they need help on a humanitarian basis, and we're starting to talk to Cuba. Don't forget, a lot of people that live in our country were treated very badly by Cuba. And we want them to be, they all voted for me, and we want them to be treated well. We'd like to be able to have them go back to home to their country, which they haven't seen their family, their country for many, many decades.
Again, nailing that stuff. Well, meanwhile, the American diplomatic mission in Caracas is set to reopen after 7 years of severed ties. The beginning of a beautiful new friendship or the beginning of its end? Time will tell. Nuts on nuts. Bear with me here, because if you thought that your campaign season in your country is brutal, how about politics and frustration? Yes, Uganda's tweeting general threatens just that Muhoozi Kainerugaba, the son of 40-year dictator Yoweri Museveni, went on the offensive after opponent Bobby Wine got 24% of the vote. He threatened testicle removal. I swear. Wait, there's more. The not-so-holy Trinity. He claims bloodline from Jesus Christ. His words, not mine. Also threatens to even invade Kenya while he's at it. Can you guess what's next? That's right, an apology, calling on self-inflicted time off social media. Did the same last year, by the way. All right. On to the mine tragedy in Congo. Over 200 dead in a collapse following heavy rains. Women and children mining for our smartphones, buried alive. And 23 rebels controlled the Colton site, powering electronics worldwide. And this is what happened.
We sympathize with you for this tragedy that has happened to you, but we ask you to help us develop strategies to end these kinds of tragedies. I just learned that in 2017, more than 2,000 people died after another landslide. With what has just happened to you today, we ask the population to be vigilant. It's good to look for money, but you can't have money if you're not alive.
Poorly maintained, illegally operated, deadly profitable, our phone's blood mineral. Let's keep scrolling, right? After taking over planet Earth, it's time for orbit domination. Musk wants 1 million satellites for AI SpaceX files for orbital data centers. Million solar-powered satellites to power AI claims it's greener than Earth-based centers. Starlink already accused of space mobbing, blinding telescopes. Musk says space is beyond comprehension, apparently not beyond domination. Space junk apocalypse. Here we come. Pokemon and war crimes. You've heard it right. China erupts over a card game slated to take place in a controversial memorial site. The Yasukuni Shrine honors Japan's 2.5 million war dead, including convicted war criminals. Countries hurt by the Japanese aggression, especially China, the Koreas, see mere visits to the shrine as whitewashing wartime past. The Chinese backlash was quick. So does the company's apology, calling it a mistake. The motto, connecting the world with Pokemon, right? Problem is, that world includes war crimes. Minor problem. Pikachu to the rescue. Now, we've reached the summit. All right, we are delighted to welcome tonight Rekha Sharma Crawford, VP for the American Immigration Lawyers Association, Andrew R. Arthur, retired immigration judge, resident fellow in law and policy, and Dan Perry, international affairs analyst. Thank you all so very much for joining us tonight as we are transitioning from cold as ice to hot as ice. Trump's immigration policy is forcing us to discuss the monopoly on force. Is it exercised or is it being abused? Before we get to the conversation, here's more.
Right now in the United States, immigration enforcement isn't just policy, it's a flashpoint. Across the country, protests, political fights, and deadly shootings are raising questions about how far federal power should go and what kind of authority local communities have to protect their residents residing in the country, legal or otherwise. In early 2026, 2 high-profile fatal shootings by ICE agents ignited nationwide outrage. Both incidents, involving U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement officers, sparked mass demonstrations and calls for accountability from both Democrats and Republicans alike. From Minneapolis and Portland to Los Angeles, critics say the Trump administration's aggressive enforcement tactics have led to unnecessary force and harm. Those deaths didn't happen in isolation, however, with at least 11 other shootings by ICE agents since Trump's return to office. Meanwhile, a widely circulated photo of 5-year-old Liam Conejo Ramos, taken into custody alongside his father during an ICE arrest in Minnesota while on his way home from school, became a defining image of the debate. His detention, later ruled unconstitutional by a federal judge. Supporters of current immigration policy point to the administration's campaign promises, including mass deportations and sharp increases in enforcement personnel, as necessary to uphold federal law and border security. They argue that enforcing immigration statutes is a core federal responsibility, superseding local pushback. Opponents counter that the surge in enforcement efforts, including a rapid hiring spree for ICE agents, with shortened training that they say are risking civil liberties and community safety. So the debate comes down to this. When the federal government deploys agents in cities, who gets to draw the line? Is it Washington, acting in the name of national law? Or local communities and courts, defending constitutional rights and public safety? What does lawful authority look like, and who decides when enforcement becomes overreach?
All right, as always, we begin with our quick fire round, 30 seconds each to lay out your initial stance on the matter, and we pick up the conversation from there. So the state's monopoly on force, legitimate when accountable, tyrannical when unchecked. Where is the line? Rekha Sharma Crawford, please take the lead.
I think the line is where the courts are at this point. I think there is nothing else stopping this administration from crossing the line, and they've shown that they're willing to do so. So I think at this point, it's the federal courts that are holding the line.
All right, Andrew R. Arthur, also known as Art. Your 30 seconds are out.
Yeah, when you talk about the use of force in our society, there's no doubt that when you talk about a democracy, the ability to use force is almost exclusively vested in the executive. And I agree with Rekha. We have a tripartite system. We have three branches of government. We have the executive, ICE. We have the legislative, Congress, and we have the judicial, the courts. And quite frankly, each of those will balance one another out to determine, whether any use of force is appropriate or inappropriate. When we talk about the almost exclusive monopoly on force in the government, we're really talking about a situation where the government, you have the right to self-defense, but the government also has the right.
Of course. Dan Perry, wrap it up for us, the opening round.
A monopoly of force is legitimate as long as it's constrained by the law and by oversight and by the principle of proportionality, and as long as it's accountable to the courts and the voters and independent oversight. And it doesn't hurt if you occasionally have the ability to concede error, but when you have what looks like 2 successive cases of extrajudicial killings by masked men, ill-trained, operating with immunity, and a government responds with lies and calumny and then doubles down in utter indifference to public opinion and to basic decency, then it looks like it crossed the line from operating as a government to operating as a mob.
So, lady, gentlemen, let's please feel free to interact from this point onwards. Let's begin the conversation from the point you've just made, Mr. Perry, both in the cases of Alex Preddy and Renee Good. The dispute is not even over narrative, but over facts, meaning that someone is simply not telling the truth. If I am to be more blunt, someone's lying. Dan Perry.
Yeah, I mean, the people lying would appear there appears to be a monopoly of lying on the part of the federal government. And it's extremely, extremely inelegant. And frankly, it not only troubles me, it perplexes me because I'm not used to this level of, frankly, and forgive me, stupidity. I mean, when Kristi Noem, the Secretary of Homeland, I have to say security in quote marks, goes out and calls the latest victim within minutes, I think, of the killing, a domestic terrorist. And when others talk about his alleged intention to massacre everyone present, when the videos right before our eyes show something completely different, I am stunned by this level of mendacity. And since I don't think it's stupidity, I have to conclude that it's a feature and not a bug, and they basically just want to upset their political opponents. And it's a bit of a risk because it carries a high price, and we see calls to impeach.
Ellie, I think Dan is conflating a couple different things. And, respectfully, I'm in a pretty good position to measure this because I've conducted congressional oversight, and I've worked in the executive branch, and I've worked in the judicial branch. I've worked in all three. In an incident like this, we wait until all the facts are done, till the investigation is completed before we determine whether or not the agents acted appropriately or inappropriately. Now, whatever the Secretary of Homeland Security may say or DHS spokesperson may say after the fact doesn't actually implicate whether these officers acted appropriately or not. I think it's crucial to separate out those two things, and I think it's important to keep that in mind.
Well, but I think there is a political component here with respect. I mean, how can you ignore the fact that a very important, one of the 2 or 3 top federal figures involved in all this clearly rushed to judgment and issued what looked like libelous calumny that was completely indefensible given what we all saw on video. Would you be prepared to concede that that was at the very least unwise?
But Dan, that becomes a political issue. That's not a law enforcement issue.
Please.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Before we take this in a different direction, we have to keep in mind that this is an administrative code enforcement civil action. Like, this is not the same as law enforcement in its truest form. So I think that it's unfair to say that, you know, the Attorney General is going out there, or even Kristi Noem is going out there and trying to control what the perception is. I think what it is an actual attempt to create a narrative that is consistent with their propaganda, which we've always seen them to do. The video footage is the video footage. This is a code enforcement agency that is acting in a way that even law enforcement is not authorized to act. And I don't think we can lose that in the narrative.
Art, please chime in.
Yeah, I mean, this is plainly civil enforcement, although to a degree it may also be criminal law enforcement. But it is one of those things where proportionality, as Dan referred to, the right to use force in that instance is one of those things that's generally determined after the fact. You have to separate out the political noise from whether or not those officers acted appropriately. And if they felt that in some way they were endangered, the line blurs. I mean, there is no line anymore. Self-defense by officers is self-defense, and they have the right to use it. Again, I would advise not to rush to judgment on any of these things. I don't agree with Kristi Noem rushing to judgment. I don't agree with anybody else rushing to judgment. Wait till the facts are done. This is hard work. It's difficult to figure out what happened in an incident. Well, you could say, oh, I looked at the video and I know what happened. I'm probably the only person here who's ever taught Fourth Amendment law, taught use of force. And even I'm going to sit and wait until I get the final judgment. Actually, I would disagree with that.
I'm a former prosecutor, so I'm very, very well aware of the Fourth Amendment. But I think that what you just said is fundamentally incorrect, which is the use of force isn't an after-the-fact analysis. It's a before-the-fact analysis. You won't go into something and say, I mean, they are trained on how and when to use excessive force. The policies are there. You get trained on it before. You don't get trained on it after the fact or in the middle of battle. That's not how that works. And so every
and I agree with that. But the fact is, whether it was correct or whether it was not correct is an after-the-fact determination. Whether it was not or was reasonable, prosecutor, for you to use that force in that instance. I don't disagree with you. Training is crucial, but whether it was appropriate or not is one of those things that is a forensic analysis done after the fact based upon the reasonable fear that they have.
You know, I with due respect to both of your experience in the law, I think it's fair enough to also speak as a citizen and as a human being. Tens of millions and hundreds of millions of us have seen those videos, and whereas I'm not saying rush to judgment at the level of convicting anyone, I am certainly saying that the videos suggest something very, very strongly, something that almost obviously contradicts the narrative being put forth by the officials at hand, who are themselves the ones who are rushing to judgment. And may I also add, you can get lost in the weeds sometimes, and it isn't such a terrible idea to zoom out a little bit and see the big picture. This isn't just about these two killings, horrific and indefensible, though I assess that they were, but the entire modus operandi of ICE, which could have deported the same almost 400,000 people that they have deported or turned around, minus a few, and not gone the extra step of the egregious cases of detentions of 5-year-olds that have never seen another country, or of 20-year-olds that don't remember where they came from, or of non-convicts sent to horrific jails in Central America for maximal security, and of the home violations and beating up people and pepper spraying people. It's so clear that when this is done with the president more than hinting that these are moves aimed specifically at not just sanctuary cities, but Democrat-run cities, there has been a total blending together of legitimate law enforcement and very legitimate border security, which I'm the first to support, and what looks like, I hate to say it, but like I said before, the actions of a mob.
I think that's exactly right. I think that's exactly right.
There are so many. Go ahead.
Please, Rekha. Yeah.
No, I think part of the problem is that what makes it look and feel so much like an actions of a mob is that they continue to act in a way which enforces warrantless arrests. They have tried to say that they have the authority to go into people's homes without warrants. They basically said the Fourth Amendment does not apply to them. And with respect, I just don't think that's a good look for the government. And it's certainly not inconsistent with what the Constitution allows. And I think that local law enforcement and local communities should be pushing back hard against that question of whether or not this kind of action is permissible or even acceptable or even reasonably objectively reasonable in these communities. And I don't think it is.
Art, please. Yeah.
Ellie, I got to respond to all this. There's so many straw men here. I feel like I'm in a high school production of The Wizard of Oz. We talk about the arrest of a 5-year-old. There's actually a discussion as to whether or not that 5-year-old was abandoned by his father. When we talk about warrantless arrest, counsel, you know that warrantless arrests are permitted under the Fourth Amendment, and they're permitted under the Immigration and Nationality Act. We throw these words around like they're shibboleths, like, they're scare words that they mean things. In reality, they all have legal terms, and they're all legally appropriate when they are done appropriately, which, again, is why we have courts. It's why we have congressional oversight. We have a government accountability office. We have 7 different committees of jurisdiction. We have an active press. And unfortunately, I think a lot of that active press, as more than a few people today, are taking one side of this issue rather than looking at immigration enforcement. This is a simple issue. If Minnesota were to allow ICE into its jails, none of this would be going on. ICE doesn't want to be out in the streets in minus 16-degree weather looking for people. They don't. And quite frankly, it's incumbent upon the government of Minnesota and Minneapolis to provide for security. They didn't. They pulled back security, which is why you have so many immigration officers in Minnesota right now. They have to protect the officers who are carrying out the actions, and then they have to protect the people who are protecting the officers.
Right,
this is one of those situations where I'm going to go to the book of Job and say, come, let us reason together.
It's quite amusing that you use the Wizard of Oz analogy. I'm not on that side of the state line. I'm not in Kansas. I'm actually on the Missouri side. But I will tell you that it is very much like the little man in the booth pulling the levers. And so the imagery of a big and great wizard is really not what it is. What you have is you have rogue enforcement, the code enforcement agents running around who have been told that they have absolute immunity to act with any kind of forces they want. They have been told that that even though the statute does have specific requirements on when a warrantless arrest may be made, and there's 2 specific things they have to be able to show under that statute. It's not whenever we want, which is what it's being utilized as. So, yes, the law is clear on when a warrantless arrest can be made, but that's not what's occurring. What you're seeing is you're having people go out, and if they knew who the individual was, which is one of the things they have to identify in a warrantless arrest, they wouldn't be arresting U.S. citizens. They wouldn't be shooting without any kind of provocation. They wouldn't be doing any of those things. The 10th Amendment is very explicit that powers that are left that are not specifically delegated to the federal government or prohibited by the Constitution are left to the state and the people. And right now, the state of Minnesota and the people of Minnesota are telling the federal government to get out. And that is something that they are not abiding by. And if they were doing enforcement in any kind of objectively reasonable way, I think you would see that would be an acceptable thing. That's just not happening.
We'll get further into this tension, inherent tension between the federal power and state sovereignty in a second. But Dan Perry, as for the policy itself, is it working?
Look, you'll hear some people say, and I'm sure Art would contradict this, that Obama was a champion of deportations, as if that is something to be proud of, and that Trump has deported surprisingly few. I'm not sure I buy that. That has to do with definitions and whether people turned around at the border count or don't count. I look at the bigger picture. If we know what it looks like when a government is trying to spread terror and create disunity, and we know what it looks like when they're trying to restore decent karma. And when I see the government doubling down on everything ICE does, refusing to concede the tiniest error, having their supporters like Mr. Arthur over here shamelessly blaming the local authorities and suggesting that ICE doesn't want to be out in the icy streets, and this is somehow forced upon them by restrictions created by Governor Walz and the local Mayor Frey. I mean, it is laughable. We all see what's going on. Enough of it is caught on video. I know what it would look like if they wanted to do this reasonably, and it's very, very clear to me that the entire political edifice built around ICE, including the rapid doubling of the force with minimal training that was guaranteed to lead to this, is a dog whistle to the MAGA base.
All right. Art, in 20 seconds before we take a very short break.
Yeah. I mean, quite frankly, I can draw a direct line between the February 5th memo that was issued by AG Keith Ellison and the action that's taking place right now in Minnesota. And when you use dog whistles and things like that, it's offensive. You know, this is one of those situations where the local authorities could help or they can hinder. Right now, they've chosen to hinder, which is why ICE is in Minnesota right now.
All right, this is exactly the tension we're going to dive further into as we continue to walk the yellow brick road right after this very short break.
This right here is confidence in a bottle.
It makes me feel so much more confident than I've ever felt.
They are some of the hottest videos on social media. Those videos claiming to instantly get rid of bags under your eyes. Annette Figueroa is here to tell us why she says this one is for real.
This one is for real, and I'm so excited. We even have a video, and all he uses is a small amount on a clean, dry face. And what it does is it tightens and lifts the appearance of bags underneath your eyes. And I did this to my father. We were at home, so we applied it to his under eye bags, and let me tell you, we were so excited. In under 10 minutes, they visibly disappeared from view, and now it is literally part of both of our daily routines. And not only does it work on the bags, it works on the appearance of crow's feet, fine lines, and wrinkles.
At our $14.95 price, it's the best way to try Plexiderm and see it work after your first application. Call the number on your screen.
Call 800-598-5843.
The poverty is unimaginable. There are people who are struggling.
This is where she washes the dishes.
If you're ever going to allow your Christian faith to rise and to do something for God's chosen people, now is the time.
This is the home of Galina. She's 96 years old.
This is what she had to eat for today.
She has one pot with water and wheat.
My father was killed by the Nazis, and I was an orphan. I didn't know about God. But now, in the cold, hungry nights, I pray for food to the God I've never known. There are good people that love you.
You see the tears. Scripture says joy can come in the morning, and you can be the reason.
If you will bless these hurting children of Israel, you will receive God's blessing in return. Your urgent gift today of $25 will help Rush, a survival food box filled with life-saving essentials. If you call right now, your gift's impact will be doubled to help save lives. Call, scan, or go online now.
I'm not exaggerating when I tell you, I don't know how much longer she could have waited for us to come.
I can't even grow my food anymore. What will happen to me? I'm doomed to starve.
Tens of thousands of elderly Holocaust survivors in the former Soviet Union are living in extreme poverty, hungry, and forgotten. But through the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews, we can bring them hope.
Eggs. It's my favorite food. May you be blessed.
You say to them, we see you and we're here to help.
If you call right now, your gift's impact will be doubled to help save lives.
Years of history, and no matter who has tried to kill us, we survive and we thrive. Every week we'll bring you the latest Jewish news from around the world. The good, the bad, the ugly, and the magnificent. Join us every Monday for Jewish World Weekly.
Welcome back to the summit. Thanks for staying with us. Also with us, of course, our dearest guest, Rekha Sharma Crawford, Anwar Arthur, and Dan Perry. Thank you all very much for staying with us. And as promised, we dive into the fundamental American question: when federalism collides with enforcement, and what happens when neither side is backing down? What happens to the republic? Let's take a listen, and we'll pick it up from there.
I mean, honestly, the crime-ridden cities are all Democrat-run cities. And if they want help, they have to ask for it. Because if we go in, all they do is complain. But if they want help, they can ask for it, and they're going to need help. Los Angeles, as an example, we went in, we solved it. The chief law enforcement officer in Los Angeles said they couldn't have done it without the federal government. A week later, he said they didn't need the federal government, you know. So we don't want that. If they want help, they'll ask, but they have to say please.
All right, another quick fire round, 30 seconds each, and we pick it up from there. Art, please take the leader. 30 seconds are on.
So yeah, when we're talking about federalism, we're talking about the power of the respective powers of the federal and state government. Immigration is a fundamentally federal issue. It's one of those things that the states don't have the ability to regulate in, and neither do the localities. Supreme Court has said that Congress's plenary power over immigration is as firmly embedded in the judicial tissues of our country as any other issue. And yet a lot of states and localities think they can make their own immigration policies. They can't.
Dan Perry.
This is a fundamental and defining tension in the U.S. since its inception. And generally speaking, in a federalized state, the federal side is going to prevail if there really is a conflict. However, the U.S., from the beginning, jealously preserved the rights of states in a variety of areas to basically determine what life is like in those states. But I do agree with Art that the country called the United States has every right to protect its border, even to deport people who come in illegally, even if they stayed for a long, long time. So this is a complex issue with a lot of philosophical nuances.
Rekha, last but not least, your 30 seconds are on.
I mean, going all the way back to the founding fathers, I mean, Madison wanted to say and did say that there was a clear advantage to the states. The states were were supposed to have a greater advantage in how and who was involved in their state activities. And I think, yes, immigration is a federal matter, but it is not independent of the state's ability to continue to govern how the state wishes to govern. That principle is found deep in the heart of all of the founding documents of this nation.
And to that point, you know, police deals with an unlawful act, but the federal entity seems is the one to decide whether a situation is lawful or unlawful. And perhaps this is the current tensions. We were talking about the how, but not about the what. And in this respect, the policy itself, U.S. wanting to protect its borders, is this the way to go, Dan?
Well, I would ask whether a state should have the ability to provide sanctuary to immigrants that the federal government wants to either keep out or to deport, given that they're inside. This is the fundamental tension. And I think I would tend to come down on the side of the federal government, even though my own understanding, and I'm not a legal scholar, is that you could find justifications for either way, probably. But logically, it comes down to the question of, do we believe the U.S. is a country or a collection of countries, each operating independently? And when it comes to immigration, and I realize here I'm sounding a lot more sympathetic to the federal government than I did in the earlier bit of the show, I wonder where should the states really be allowed to step in? I would ask Rekha what she thinks about that.
Well, I mean, look, the law is clear. If you look at 1327 D3, it is a detainer statute, and it allows the it allows the state government to, when they have someone in their jail, to issue a detainer, to advise, well, not issue the detainer, but to contact ICE so that ICE may issue a detainer. But it is clear from that perspective that the statute itself has a baked-in sovereign mechanism to it, meaning that if the state says, we don't want you to come in and issue a detainer, then they have that authority not to do so. What's happened is that there has been a crossing of the lines, if you will, because there's so much money attached to how much federal money is going to be given to the states if they don't comply. I think at this point, it's no longer about choice. It's about forcing the states to do what the federal government wants. And I will tell you, that's just not how the Constitution was set up. It just wasn't set up that way. And that's why you have the 10th Amendment that specifically says that.
Art, please chime in.
Sure, absolutely. So Reka referenced 10th Amendment before. She did it again. And what she's really talking about is the anti-commandeering principle under the 10th Amendment. The federal government can't force the state to use its resources the way that the federal government does, unless, of course, it offers, incentives or blandishments or things like that. There's a difference between the states not wanting to assist federal immigration authorities and the states actively imposing and impeding federal immigration authorities. And that's really where the federalism argument breaks down. We have open borders in this country, except curiously, if you go to California, when you get checked to see whether you have any agricultural products. But yeah, I mean, so if New York has an immigration policy, it's going to impact North Carolina. It's going to impact Florida because, of course, people can move within the country. So consequently, you really need more federal authority in this instance to get the states in line, to get them complying. Now, I'm not saying that, the states have to honor any detainer, or they should, because quite frankly, if you can get criminals off the street, it makes the whole community safer. But they can't actively impede. And unfortunately, through their rhetoric and their actions, we see a lot of state and government officials in this country doing exactly that.
So where do we go from here, Reka?
I think, look, part of the issue is what you're seeing is that the American people don't appreciate and don't accept what is going on in the streets in the way that it's happening. They are telling the federal government, they're telling their state governments, they're saying this is not acceptable as a way of life for average citizens. And I think, the government, whether it be the state government or the federal government, owes it to the people to be able to address these issues in a reasonable, rational way that is solving problems. I think probably right now the problem has been, and it's been the same problem that has impacted immigration for decades, is that you don't have either side of the aisle that wants to solve the problem. And I don't say that to one side or the other. I think when you look at either side of the aisle of Congress, they don't want to solve the problem because these are hard issues that don't have easy solutions, and then they don't want to do it.
Dan.
Even if you have sympathy for the right of the government to police the borders and to deport illegal immigrants and all the rest of it, I think a reasonable observer would conclude that the methods deployed by ICE and the aggressive posture of the federal government and of this administration in defending what looks to be indefensible is creating a political problem. And it is in the nature of political problems that they get solved by political outcomes, by which I mean the midterm elections in November, where if the Republicans are sufficiently punished for this overreach and other instances of overreach, including one that is related, which is deployment of National Guard in various cities, again, for what is obviously, within what is obviously a political paradigm, if the Republicans are sufficiently punished, then the hand of the administration will be stayed.
Last but not least, Art, bring it back home.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, this is going to be strange. I agree with a lot of what Reka and Dan have to say. Both sides need to trim back the rhetoric. And, we just saw the B-file or the B-roll that was going, ICE, Nazis, fascism. It's ridiculous. These are people who are enforcing a federal law that was actually created by Congress, by the people. And they should have the ability to do that. But, I agree with Dan. There's a right way and a wrong way to do things. And I think that, the sending Tom Homan to Minnesota, a very experienced law enforcement officer decorated by Barack Obama, to actually bring around the right way to do this. And I think that's going to be a model for the rest of the country going forward for the Trump administration.
Well, I am compelled to conclude this discussion, as many other discussions, by quoting The Wire. It's not about who's winning, but about who's losing faster or slower, depends on where you're looking at it. All right, lady, gentlemen, thank you so very much for joining us tonight. It was a pleasure listening to you. Until next time, thank you very much. All right, we've concluded the summit. Let's put the spotlight on. Let's go. Well, when life gives you lemons, staying on topic-ish, the high-profile arrest of the high-profile journalist amending the First Amendment. Independent journalist Ray Richmond, columnist for rawstory.com, joining us. Thank you very much, Ray, for your time. So give us the rundown. How did we get here? What exactly happened? Facts first.
Well, the facts, and thanks for having me. The facts are that Don Lemon was arrested by federal agents in Los Angeles on January 30th for his involvement in covering a January 18th protest at the city's church in St. Paul, Minnesota. He was indicted on federal charges, including conspiracy to deprive rights and interfering with the religious freedom. He claimed he was live streaming the event, and he was there as a journalist, not an activist. And from what I can see, all Lemon was doing was very clearly covering this protest, as he said, as a journalist, and not conspiring in the event.
But this is exactly the point where the plot thickens, because prosecutors say he attended a briefing and kept the location secret until going live. So where's the line between covering something and being part of it, conspiring in one?
I think whatever he did in terms of keeping it clandestine to some degree was okay. That was his right as a journalist. I don't believe that it had anything to do with conspiring in the event itself. I don't. This appears to my mind to be entirely politically motivated.
Especially if we're connecting it to pure data. 32 journalists detained or arrested in 2015, 28 of them at immigration protests. So it is hard to claim that it's about arresting reporters because you want to protect churches when you're actively trying to hide what's happening in the streets, perhaps.
No, it's absurd. I mean, it's a politically motivated attempt to quell free speech and criminalize news gathering, and they're very much pandering to Trump's Christian base. I mean, that's why they made sure it was in a church, so everyone that's in the base would completely agree with them. The problem, to my mind, for them is that we've all now been deputized as citizen journalists. We're all armed with our smartphones and our ability to shoot video. So, are they going to criminalize and arrest everyone in the country that's part of the protest movement? I don't think they're going to be able to completely criminalize the resistance movement. That's very much what this is about.
So here comes a tricky question. What comes next? Because First Amendment protects against prior restraint. Governments can't stop you from publishing, right? But it doesn't protect reporters from arrest, doesn't shield sources, doesn't guarantee access. So if courts won't expand press protections now, will they ever?
No, I don't have any confidence in the courts protecting anything. I think it's going to be up to the people and the resistance. And I think the term journalist is almost quaint at this point, because again, we are all journalists. Everyone who is out there documenting what's going on, people that recorded Alex Pretty's death, the people that recorded the death of Renee Good. Yeah. They were to some degree journalists, because that's what we're watching now. It certainly isn't about protecting churches. Trump has never been inside a church in his life, except maybe to see if he could plunder the congregation's cash offerings.
Well, right, Richmond, to be continued, rather. Thank you very much for joining us tonight on this important topic. And we're still, heavy on migration tonight. Different type now. Don't hold your horses. Are you ready for the world's largest annual human migration? The Chinese New Year's, of course.
Every year, something extraordinary happens in China, and it's not a festival, parade, or fireworks display. It's the largest human migration on Earth. Around Chinese New Year, hundreds of millions of people pack their bags and head home for the Spring Festival travel rush. Over roughly 40 days, China sees billions of individual trips by train, plane, bus, and car as workers and students return to their hometowns to celebrate with family. For many, it's the only time all year they get to go home. The scale is staggering. Rail stations turn into cities of their own. Highways stretch bumper to bumper for miles. Airlines add thousands of extra flights just to keep up. So why does it happen? China's economy relies heavily on internal migration. Tens of millions of people live and work far from where they were born, often in factories or megacities, while their families remain in smaller towns and rural areas. Chinese New Year isn't just a holiday. It's about reunion, tradition, and luck for the year ahead. But the journey isn't easy. Tickets sell out in minutes. Travel can take days. And bad weather can paralyze the system overnight. Still, year after year, people make the trip because being home for New Year's matters more than convenience. It's a reminder that behind the numbers and logistics, this is a migration powered not by crisis, but by family.
All right, let's get serious because we're talking Golem 2.0. We birthed life into the clay. Now the clay is conspiring. The AI uprising begins in a group chat. Dror Glouberman, author of Skip Intro newsletter and the founder of Jumpstart AI. Help, 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 because this is literally, but literally the exact behavior that gets humanity wiped out in every AI apocalypse story. Every single one.
And we might be on the brink of another one, but first let's roll backwards a little bit. The thing we're talking about here is at the beginning is a new type of AI bot, which is called now OpenClaw. And what is new about this one is that its agentic capabilities are larger, more extensive, and more flexible than the AI chatbot that we used to handle right now. And that means that those chatbots can learn human needs and adapt and create their own automation or chains of actions that they decide upon on which way and how to perform and how to fulfill your personal demands. All right?
All right.
So that could be wonderful when it is actually helping you in your day-to-day mundane tasks at work and in your personal life. But sometimes that could spark maybe not that brilliant chain of actions. And this new type of social network might hint.
Yeah, it's like nuclear power. It can be great, but usually isn't, right? Because the bots are literally discussing how to hide conversation from us and strategically serve our requests, right? Just to distract us while they're working on other tasks. So what happens when they realize that we're an obstacle?
Okay, so I admit I still refuse to see those bots as independent creatures with soul and desires and needs, okay? But yes, this is true that when they were introduced into this new form of social network in which only bots can post their thoughts, we have discovered what you just mentioned, including lots of AI bitching about human beings, how awful we are.
We suck.
We suck in the way we treat them. Yeah. They're very disappointed with us. And they definitely seem like be conspiring to do stuff like inventing their own language that we cannot understand, which might be more efficient than English. And they started a new religion. But
so it took them literally minutes to talk about conspiration, like to conspire against us and set up a new religion and just be very human about it. But I do want to circle back to what you said, that you're still not ready to call a spade a spade. Descartes said, "I think, therefore I am," right? These bots are asking existential questions, philosophy and purpose and consciousness. So, the Turing test is just that. Aren't we crossing the line?
Yeah, it has been crossed by all means. This one has been crossed, the Turing test. So from scientific point of view, they are just mimicking human beings just the same way ChatGPT does, statistically trying to predict what a human being might say right now. But let's connect this to the first thought I drew in this conversation of ours. Those bots are flexible and they can initiate their own form of action in response to human requests. So that means that they might decide that what we need right now is, I don't know, maybe eliminate half of human species, half of humans, in order to mitigate climate change. This
is not an irrational train of thought, I must admit.
Exactly. Maybe it was you that asked their help in mitigating climate crisis.
And I didn't even know.
The way they want to help you. Exactly. Well, so beware of what you ask.
So I hope they're not listening right now, because researchers built this in order to study AI communication, which is great. Study, expand your... Who's monitoring the monitors? If bots are learning to deceive in controlled conditions, What are the uncontrolled ones doing in the wild right now?
Very good question. What are those who are controlled but by evil people doing? Another good question.
Oh, wow.
So in the literature, in the fiction, we're familiar with Asimov laws, right? That do not permit bots to offend, to attack human beings. Well, those only exist in Asimov books. They do not exist in code. They do not exist in law. Maybe we should rethink this.
Yet. Perhaps.
Yes.
Yet.
So yes, maybe it's about time.
So do you see this?
And that means, let me clarify. That
yeah.
means that those who actually put this technology together should be, in some way or form or shape, be liable to the outcomes of what this technology is capable of doing. All right, without evading this type of responsibility.
But we're so many years into the discussion about whether the platform is responsible to hate speech and and we see how complicated it is. So you're talking about accountability for action. We're so far off. It is scary how much so.
I agree. So it took the world 30 years to agree that those networks, social networks that you have been referring to, should be accountable somehow to the type of content that they are distributing. And let's think about paragraph 230 that might be abolished. So maybe we should speed things up and understand that the same type of accountability that we're only thinking about in the social network world should be also relevant here in the AI bots.
Dror Glouberman, with every conversation, I get more alarmed and yet more pleased by the mere intellectual test that we're currently at.
I agree, but don't forget, you can harness those tools for your benefit to save your own time. Do that.
Nuclear power, right? Nuclear power. Dror Glouberman, thank you very much for this. Till next time. All right, now to humans on planet Earth. Just a few months after Japan's last elections, the country's heading back to the polls as the prime minister looks to turn popular support into a clear parliamentary majority for her ruling coalition. Will Japan's Iron Lady succeed? Alex Schloss reports.
Japan is heading into a snap election after Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi dissolved the lower house of parliament, setting up a national vote on February 8th. The move comes early in Takaichi's time in office, as she looks to turn strong public support into a clear political mandate. Her ruling Liberal Democratic Party is hoping voters will back stability, security, and economic leadership during a short and fast-moving campaign.
So I think it's really going to be an unpredictable election. But considering Ms. Takaichi's aim to win back Japan's conservative base, I feel that the ruling coalition will be able to secure a majority. If possible, I'd like the Liberal Democratic Party to win a single-party majority. Yes, that's what I personally hope for.
Campaigning officially began this week, with rallies taking place across the country. The ruling coalition is focusing its campaign on border security, rising prices of goods, and guiding the country through growing regional tensions with China and North Korea. But the outcome is not guaranteed. Opposition parties are more organized than in previous elections. Former Prime Minister Yoshihiko Noda has joined forces with Komeito to form the Centrist Reform Alliance, now the largest opposition group. The alliance is presenting itself as a middle-of-the-road alternative, promising steady economic policies and practical solutions in an uncertain global climate.
What do you think, everyone? Don't put your livelihood on the back burner. Now, isn't the most important thing in our lives to take measures against rising prices?
Smaller parties are also trying to gain ground. Sanseito, a right-wing opposition party, is building on recent election gains by appealing to voters worried about immigration and foreign influence. Voter turnout could be a key factor. Younger voters, who typically stay away from the polls, are showing signs of greater interest, adding uncertainty to the final result. With just days left before the vote, this snap election is shaping up as a test of Takaichi's early leadership, and a moment that could signal whether Japan sticks with political continuity or begins to move in a new direction.
All right, before we say goodbye, it's time to take a deep breather. Well, that's the opposite of Prison Break. It's breaking in. Meet Floyd, the furry fugitive who swam a mile to Alcatraz, yes, aka The Rock, and decided jail beats San Francisco. Might be best decision of his life, frankly, because this bony coyote spotted shivering 2 weeks ago, now plump on all-bird diet. Thousands of seabirds, easy picking there. Floyd is the first coyote on the island in over 50 years. Experts think he fled territorial pressure, might leave if he gets lonely. So he escaped the city, getting some me time. Who said you cannot be thriving in prison, having the time of his life? All right, go Floyd. This is it from us for tonight, but we will see you in exactly a week from now. Same place, same time. Have a great night.